Let's start with something that happened right after we got off the air yesterday. And I find it interesting because this is the first time this has ever happened in college athletics. Not the firing of a head coach. I don't think that surprised anybody. We've talked about Troy Taylor and Stanford here in the last week. He was under investigation for his treatment of female staffers.
Yeah. You can't tell the compliance department to go pound sand.
You cannot do that. That's usually not a good thing, especially at a university like Stanford, and especially when your record is 6-18. Had your record been 18-6, maybe the pound sand argument makes sense.
Right.
He's a loser, and he's telling them to pound sand.
Yeah.
Double negative. Going to lead to probably losing your job. Stanford, up until yesterday, had been supportive of Troy Taylor, and the person behind the messaging here, and this is where it gets interesting, is Andrew Luck.
Yeah, he's now the general manager.
He's the general manager of Stanford football.
Stanford football.
Do you know why he had to be the one who fired Troy Taylor? They don't have an athletic director.
Oh.
Their athletic director resigned at the end of stepped away. I don't know what the word was.
Yeah.
He left his job at the end of the last term, which for them was on February 25th.
Oh, man.
So they have been gone a month. They're in the process of trying to find a new, they don't have an athletic director right now. And so for the first time, this is a new growing role in college athletics, the general manager role. It's interesting. We can talk to Tyson about this later, but Dana Altman was asked about this at his exit meeting, or his exit interviews, exit press, whatever, and he was asked, hey, Oregon basketball doesn't have a general manager, and he's pushing back against it. He said, I got enough experience on my staff. I've been doing this long enough. We don't need somebody to oversee all that stuff. So some coaches don't want this person to oversee things. Basketball, a little bit different than football.
It's a little bit of a power thing.
It absolutely is. It's a GM and a coach thing in the NFL.
It's a GM and a coach, definitely. Who's picking the players, that sort of stuff. But I think you will definitely have to find... You have to then, as the head coach, if you're going to be in charge of the program, you better have some guys on your staff that are paying attention to the recruiting piece of it and portal activity and NIL that you absolutely trust, so that when you go sit down in a room and they come to you as like, here's who's available, here's who's vulnerable,
here's
that
what
sort
they
of
want,
thing.
here's what we need.
You can get to the point. So I think there's different ways to do it. I don't think one model is better than the other.
No.
But you got to have enough people and enough support staff at the higher institutions so you can cover everything, because until the sport decides to set things up like the professional leagues where there's a window for each little piece of the business.
Yes.
If stuff overlaps and stuff's chaos and it's everybody, all the time, no one person can do it all.
No. I mean, there was a great quote.
Do it well.
Exactly. This happened in college football at the end of the year. Everybody pointed out how ridiculous it is that the playoff was going on as the portal window opened. Exactly. And what's happening in college basketball right now?
Yeah, chaos.
It's the Sweet 16 and the portal's open.
At least a quarter, if not getting close to a third of scholarship players who played college basketball. So there's 365 teams. If there's 13 scholarships, I think my math was like 4,725 scholarship athletes, and
by
over 1,200 have hit the portal so
it's
far.
An insane number. Tom Izzo had a great quote on that yesterday where he was asked about the portal and, hey, you're getting ready for the Sweet 16.
That for you
and
you want.
He basically was like, look, I'm in the Sweet 16, man.
Yeah.
This might bite us down. I'm not recruiting. I don't care. I'm focused on we got a game this week. We're hopefully going to win and go to the Elite Eight. Like, if this hurts me down the road, it hurts me down the road. I can't focus on two things at the same time. So I love the honesty from Izzo on that quote. But this is interesting because it's the first time. It's a new role in college athletics, mainly college football. Some basketball programs have these as well. And it's the first time we've seen a GM fire a head coach in college athletics. And so the quote from Andrew Luck yesterday, there's a couple of tentacles of this story. He wrote in a statement from Stanford Athletics, he said, since beginning my role as general manager, I've been thoroughly assessing the entire Stanford football program. It has been clear that certain aspects of the program need change. Additionally, in recent days, there has been some significant attention to Stanford investigations in previous years related to Coach Taylor. After continued consideration, it is evident to me that our program needs a reset. In consultation with university leadership, I no longer believe that Coach Taylor is the right coach to lead our football program. So the tentacles of this are a couple. One, this is likely going to lead to a lawsuit. They're trying to fire him for cause, I would imagine. But this also reeks of you didn't fire him and you were privately supporting him before the story became public. Then the story comes public. Right. Everybody's looking at Stanford saying, hey, wait a minute. This guy's not treating staffers right. You're backing him, and there's a media scrutiny. All of a sudden, you fire him out of the blue on a Tuesday. Well,
it's only a lawsuit if they don't buy out whatever's left on his contract.
Which I would imagine they're going to try to, but I don't know how that's all going to play out.
Stanford's got more money. They know what to do
They
with,
do, but if they feel like they don't have to spend a couple, I don't know what his buyout, I can see if I can find that.
I can't imagine it's backbreaking.
I can't imagine either, but I would, if you would ask Stanford, hey, would you want to save a couple of $1 million? I would think that they would say yes. So I'll try and find what the buyout is. But that is the first kind of tentacle of this. The second one, and just from a pure athletic standpoint, this, again, I'm going to follow through with why it's interesting in the first place. Not just that a head coach got fired of a former Pac-12 school, and Stanford has been one of the better programs of the last 15 or so years, right? Going back to Harbaugh. You're now likely, unless something changes in the short term, you're going to have a GM hire the first head coach. Andrew Luck came out and said, we're not opposed to having an interim guy for the year, which good luck with that. But also, spring ball's going on right now.
Yeah.
So that's not an easy thing to figure out. How many of their guys are going to hit the portal? I don't know how good their team was going to be next year, but probably not great. But they might have a couple of guys who could look to transfer out of this. So that's one ramification. But then there's just also the thought of, like, what is Stanford football in the future? He was there for 2 years, and by no means was Stanford in a great spot at the end, at the end of the era. But him coming in 3-9 in year one, David Shaw was the name I was looking for there. At the end of David Shaw, 3-9 in year one, 3-9 in year two. 1 year in the Pac-12, 1 year in the ACC. He was 4-13 in conference play. There's always going to be a certain, segment of kid, I would imagine, that would be interested in attending Stanford for the academic prestige of it.
Yes.
But it's just a fascinating job for me of where are they at in NIL? If this whole house settlement goes through and that's where we're going, does that boost their stock a little bit? Can this ever turn back into the job that it once was? Because now we have gone for Stanford being, one of the main foes of Oregon for many years in the Pac-12, and it seemingly for a long time was between one of those two teams winning the conference every year. You're now on an extended stretch of bad Stanford football, and I'm just really curious how that job is, because I don't know how to feel about it. I see both sides of the argument. The ACC thing doesn't make any sense to me. I understand why they were looking for a life raft, but ultimately the travel and the conference affiliate, like that, that's dumb to play in the Atlantic Coast Conference when you're based on the Pacific Ocean. So that whole thing is weird, and with a head coach opening, you're going to have a general manager hire the first head coach in college football.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. I wonder, there's still some people that think Andrew Luck might be wearing a headset at some point.
I mean, if I were in Stanford University, like if I was a president down there or something, I would tell him, like, why don't you take this job?
Yeah.
I know you probably don't want to coach, but he would be a good coach, I would imagine.
It's an interim thing.
He's a brilliant football mind.
Until they get an athletic director in there and some other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're going, the last time they won more than 4 games in a season was 2018. That was 7 years ago. Like, that's... And they went 4-8, then the COVID year 4-2, 3-9, 3-9 the last 2 years under David Shaw, and then 3-9 the first 2 years under Troy Taylor. So first bombshell of the day yesterday. Troy Taylor was canned.
Hard to watch an entire sport as big as it is go through a complete revolution.
Yeah,
in real time.
And that's exactly what's happening.
Because you have the other thing too, and college basketball gets roped in. So that St. Francis team that was in the play-in game.
They're going down a level.
They are dropping to Division III.
They don't want to be Division I anymore.
That's Linfield, George Fox, Lewis and Clark level.
And you're going to have a lot of those schools that do it because they don't have the money and they don't want to. They don't want to revenue share with their players.
Curious, if you drop all the way down. So there's no academic or athletic scholarships at the Division III level. They have academic scholarships and grants that you can apply for depending on the school. And 365 Division I college basketball program seems egregious as to where things are going and the consolidation of top players and money.
And also how you're going to have to pay these guys and when all that stuff goes through this summer. So there's a lot of loose ends in college athletics right now. We'll get to another side of this, of a conversation about ratings and the thought of, is this bad for college athletics? We'll get to that coming up in the final hour. But this was the first big bombshell. I get home yesterday, just kind of, all right, let's start putting a show sheet together. And I'm like, oh, look at that. Troy Taylor got canned at Stanford. Not surprised.
Probably overdue
to
fire him, but the how is the interesting part here.
Yes, and is it for cause? Is there a buyout? If there's not a buyout, is there a lawsuit? And then what the hell does spring ball is underway? You got to go find a new coach, a new staff. Players can now hit the portal because the coach got fired. It's an interesting time down there, and Andrew Luck has taken over as general manager for the first time in college athletics. We have a general manager firing a head coach, and likely, unless they get an athletic director in the meantime, but I don't know where that process is at, we might have our first hiring by a general manager in college athletics, and Andrew Luck is going to be that guy.